All right, so you ready to dive in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Awesome. Today, we're going to get into some of these predictions for this week's games. And, sometimes the numbers tell an interesting story.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. You gotta love those hidden narratives.
exactly. So we're focusing on the Jets and the Texans, a matchup that, at first glance, might seem kind of predictable.
Right, you look at the standings, you kind of think you know how it's gonna go.
Yeah, but then you
Yeah.
start digging into the data, and some really interesting stuff pops up, some real head scratchers.
Oh, yeah, definitely some potential for some upsets, maybe some sneaky betting opportunities.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. All right, well, let's jump right into it. First up, this prediction that's got me kind of baffled. They're saying C.J. Stroud's going to throw under 224.5 yards.
Yeah, that was raising some eyebrows, especially after his last game, right?
Yeah, 285 yards against the Colts the guy was dealing.
Right. He was on fire.
So what gives?
Well, got to factor in the opponent this week. The Jets defense, they're a different beast altogether. We're talking about a top-tier defense, maybe the best in the league right now, especially when it comes to defending the pass.
Seriously, how good are we talking?
Look at this. They're allowing the lowest completion percentage in the red zone, and their overall dropback success rate is phenomenal. They're just shutting down passing games left and right.
Wow. All right, so that's a tough matchup for anybody, let alone a quarterback who's still relatively new to the league.
Right, and to make matters worse, Stroud's going to be without his two best receivers.
Oh, right. Diggs and Collins are both out. That's brutal.
Yeah, it's like taking away a chef's best knives. Makes it a whole lot harder to create something special.
So if Stroud's likely to struggle, are the Texans just going to, abandon the passing game entirely and focus on the run?
Well, they'll have to adjust somehow.
Uh,
And that leads us perfectly into our next prediction. They're saying Joe Mixon is going to rush for over 77.5 yards.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense if they can't rely on Stroud to move the ball through the air.
Exactly. And when you look at the Texans' game plan when Mixon is in the game, their rushing play percentage goes way up. It's clear that they trust him to carry the load.
And are the Jets prepared to handle a heavy dose of Mixon?
Well, their run defense hasn't exactly been their strong suit. They're ranked 24th in defensive rush success rate.
So they've been giving up a lot of yards on the ground.
Yeah, and you got to remember, Mixon, he's a beast. Averaging almost 5 yards a carry, he can wear a defense down.
So not only might the Texans run more, but they could actually be really successful doing it.
That's the thought.
And maybe even a Mixon touchdown.
Oh, yeah. The odds makers are definitely liking his chances.
I mean, the Jets have given up more touchdowns on the ground than through the air this season, right?
That's right. And Mixon's been finding the end zone pretty consistently this year.
Okay, well, let's switch gears for a second and talk about the Jets' offense. One prediction that caught my eye is Breece Hall going over 70 rushing yards. The odds on that seem pretty good.
Yeah, those odds are definitely intriguing.
So what's the thinking there?
Well, gotta consider that Aaron Rodgers has been, let's say, a bit out of sync this season. They might be looking to lean on the run game a bit more, especially against the Texans.
Right, their pass defense has been really solid.
Exactly, but their run defense, not so much. And Hall's been looking good lately. He had over 80 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, and his carries per game are trending upwards, so they seem to be giving him the ball more and more.
Okay, so we've got Stroud potentially struggling, Mixon potentially running wild, and Hall finding some room to operate. So what's the big takeaway here?
I think this game could be a lot closer than people expect.
Really?
You think so?
Yeah, it's all pointing towards a lower scoring, grinded out type of game.
That's a really interesting point. A lot of people are probably expecting a shootout, but... Yeah, but I'm not so sure. I mean, if I were a betting man,
Yeah.
I'd be looking at those rushing yard props for both Mixon and Hall, and maybe even consider the under on total points scored.
Ooh, that's a bold prediction. I love it. All right, well, thanks for breaking it all down. To everyone listening, we want to hear from you. Do you think this is going to be a high-scoring affair
Right.
or a defensive battle? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.